People out there mad as hell right now, and what's especially maddening is we've all actually lived through this before. For years, we've heard industry leaders and politicians score points on this issue, but nothing happens. So let's right now ask our own panel of experts from the left, the right, down the middle, all so you can make up your own mind. In Miami, we've got Tyson Slocum, who is the director of the Energy Program for Public Citizen, a national consumer advocacy group. In Washington with us, Pat Toomey, former Republican congressman from Pennsylvania, and now president of the Club for Growth, which we should say lobbies for pro-business economic policies. And here in the studio with me is Poppy Harlow, who reports on energy prices for CNNmoney.com. Pat, I want to start with you. And what I was just talking about a moment ago with our own Ali Velshi is that the government has to make it easier with incentives for Americans to be fuel efficient. And it's just not doing that. Why not? What's happening?
Well, I completely disagree with the premise. I mean, what the government is doing, which is just borders on the criminal to me, is it artificially restricts our supply. We need more petroleum to have petroleum at lower costs. And yet we have laws that forbid us from drilling offshore, drilling off the coast of Florida. We can't drill in Anwar, where we know there's large supply. And maybe worst of all is the truly vast quantities of oil in the oil shales of Colorado and Utah. The Congress has passed a law forbidding the leasing of that land, which would, we've got 4 times as much oil in oil shale as Saudi Arabia does, and existing oil companies believe that they can extract it at competitive prices now. In fact, that price is much lower than oil is now. The limitation on supply is primarily the blame of our federal government.
All right, Tyson. Pat says there's plenty available. We just got to drill for it. What's wrong with that?
There was no facts in there whatsoever. In 2008, the United States is the 3rd biggest crude oil producer on the planet. Even if we produced as much oil as Saudi Arabia did every day, we'd still be importing half of our oil. The world is awash in crude oil surplus. We have over 1 billion barrels of crude oil sitting here in the United States ready to be released into the market, and consumers have been doing their part. We're using less gasoline than we were a year ago. Demand is down 1%, but yet the market has driven prices up. I have seen market prices become detached from the supply-demand fundamentals. So what we absolutely need to do, families are struggling to get by under these high energy prices, and the government has to provide more incentives to folks to help them afford to drive more fuel-efficient cars. Because right now, if folks go to the car dealer, they can't afford to buy a super fuel-efficient hybrid vehicle.
Okay, hold on, guys. Poppy, give us a reality check. There are diametrically opposed positions here.
Yeah, of course, and they both have good points. But the truth is, Campbell, I think you can really price Americans out of anything. What could happen if down the road, $4 a gallon gas is the good old days? What we need to talk about, folks, is that we're not alone in this world. In the UK, they're paying way more than $8 a gallon. In other parts of the world, they're paying even more than that. What Pat was just talking about is something called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, where we have...
No.
That's what we're talking about, that in terms of our supply here in the United States. If you pull from that, we use 20 million barrels a day here in America of oil. So if you pull from that, 700 million, you're getting about 35 days, just a month over in terms of oil. The reality is price Americans out of it, and they will change how they are acting right now.
Americans are already shifting, and frankly, it is the price mechanism that drives them to do that. There is a big fall off in the sales of SUVs and trucks, and there's an increase in demand for hybrids and more fuel-efficient vehicles. That's going to happen naturally.
Okay, but
we should introduce more supply.
Hold on, guys. Pat, let me ask you this, because oil companies are showing double-digit profits right now. And get this, in the first 4 months of this year, they gave $14 million to politicians, and most of them Republicans. Just yesterday, you've got Senate Republicans blocking a tax on their profits, and they get to keep their tax breaks. I mean, I know you're a Republican, a former congressman.
Let me respond.
Is it quid pro quo or not?
Yeah, let me respond. They're paying over 40% of their profits in taxes now.
Oh,
there are lots of companies and industries that make more money. Microsoft is more profitable. Pfizer is more profitable. Coke is more profitable. So what do we want to do? If you make too much money, if you're successful, we're going to arbitrarily assign a new tax, confiscate that. That's just going to discourage any further exploration. It's going to discourage capital from accumulating and being invested in the United
ridiculous.
States. It's a terrible idea.
Let me let Tyson respond. Tyson, go ahead.
Oil companies are the most profitable sector in the U.S. economy. They are absolutely not hurting for money. The fact is that they get $9 billion a year in tax breaks and subsidies from the American taxpayer. That's what's criminal. We have no business subsidizing a mature, profitable industry like oil. We need to end the subsidies, which is what the Democrats tried to do, and instead of giving that money to ExxonMobil,
Democrats
give it to
hold on,
American
hold on.
families.
Give
it to American families.
You get the last word.
Folks, subsidies aside, it's very likely that in your 401k and a mutual fund you might own, it probably has an oil company in it. Think of ExxonMobil, the most profitable company in the world that is not government-backed. So when they're making money, you're likely making money as well. Something to keep in mind there before jumping all over 'em.
Okay, we got to end it there, but a good discussion to Tyson, to Pat, and to Poppy. Thanks you all. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.